Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the star charts with cold satisfaction. The massive viewing screen showed 17 red dots scattered across the galaxy. Each dot represented a world his royal fleet had destroyed. Each one had been home to billions of lives that no longer existed. The Zephyrian Empire had built the perfect war machine. 200 ships moved through space like deadly shadows. At the center of the fleet were the planet crackers. These enormous vessels carried weapons that could split entire worlds in half. They used quantum destabilizers that found the weak points in a planet's structure and tore them apart from the inside. It was efficient, it was final, and it had never failed. The Admiral's 4 arms moved across the control panels with practiced ease. His species had evolved from hunters on a world where quick reflexes meant survival. Now they hunted entire civilizations across the stars. The irony was not lost on him. A young officer approached with nervous steps. Lieutenant Vexitar had joined the fleet only cycles ago, fresh from the military academy. He still believed in honor and mercy. The Admiral had once been like that too. "Sir, we have reached the target system," the lieutenant reported. His voice shook slightly. "The planet they call Earth is directly ahead." Kethvar turned his attention to the new star system. It looked ordinary enough, a single yellow star with several planets orbiting around it. The third planet from the star glowed blue and green in the distance. Scans showed it was covered in water and had a thick atmosphere, perfect conditions for the life forms that lived there. "What do we know about these humans?" the Admiral asked. Lieutenant Vexitar checked his data pad. "They achieved faster-than-light communication about 50 years ago. They have been sending radio signals into space for over a century. Their technology level is primitive. They still use chemical rockets to travel between their planets. Weapons? Fusion bombs and projectile weapons. Nothing that could threaten our shields. They have a few ships in their system, but they are very small. Our sensors count maybe 30 vessels total." The Admiral nodded. It was always the same pattern. A species would develop radio technology, then faster-than-light communication. They would send messages to the stars, hoping to find friends. Instead, they found the royal fleet. The Zephyrian Empire had a simple rule about such species. Any civilization that could communicate across the stars but could not defend itself properly was a future threat. Better to eliminate them now while they were weak. "Have they tried to communicate with us?" Kethvar asked. "Yes, sir. Many messages over the past few weeks. They offer tribute, territory, even complete surrender. They seem to understand what we are here to do." The Admiral deleted the messages without reading them. He had seen it all. Before, the desperate pleas, the offers of wealth and service, the final pathetic attempts to bargain for survival. It never mattered. The Empire's orders were clear. "Begin standard approach," he commanded. "Signal the fleet to assume attack. Formation. Charge the quantum destabilizers to half power for the demonstration." The bridge crew moved with smooth efficiency. They had done this 17 times before. The routine was always the same. Arrive at the target system. Show overwhelming force. Demand surrender. Then crack the planet in half and harvest the remains for raw materials. As the fleet moved deeper into the solar system, more details about the humans became clear. They had settlements on several worlds. Small colonies on their moon and on a red planet further from their star. Mining stations in the asteroid belt. For a primitive species, they had spread quite far. "Interesting," the Admiral mused. "They have been busy." "Sir, the human vessels are moving," reported the tactical officer. "They are grouping around their homeworld." On the main screen, tiny dots of light gathered near the blue-green planet. The human ships were so small compared to the royal fleet that they looked like insects. 30 ships against 200. Chemical rockets against quantum destabilizers. It would not even qualify as a battle. "Open a communication channel," Kethvar ordered. "All frequencies. I want every human in this system to hear this." A soft chime indicated the channel was open. The Admiral stepped forward, his image now being broadcast to every human receiver in the solar system. He had given this speech many times. The words came easily. "Humans of Earth. I am Admiral Kethvar of the Royal Fleet. Your species has been judged and found lacking. You have developed communication technology without developing proper defenses. This makes you a future threat to galactic stability." He paused, knowing that across the human system, billions of beings were listening to their death sentence. By order of the Zephyrian Empire, your civilization will be terminated. Your planet will be destroyed. Your colonies will be eliminated. This is not negotiable. This is not a war. This is an execution. The communication channel remained open, waiting for the expected response. Usually, there would be frantic messages, offers of surrender, pleas for mercy. Sometimes species would try to flee, but there was nowhere to run. Instead, silence filled the void between the fleets. After several long minutes, a single transmission came from the blue-green world. It was a simple message in basic galactic. Standard. The voice was female, calm, and strangely polite. Admiral HFY, we have received your message. After careful consideration, we must decline your terms. We respectfully suggest that you reconsider your approach before lives are unnecessarily lost on both sides. The bridge fell silent. Lieutenant Vextar's mouth hung open. Even the veteran crew members stared at their instruments in disbelief. In the entire history of the Royal Fleet, no species had ever responded like that. They declined? The lieutenant whispered. Admiral HFY felt something he had not experienced in many cycles. Surprise. These humans were facing planet-destroying weapons with nothing but tiny ships and chemical rockets. They had been told they would all die, and they had politely declined the offer to surrender. The audacity was almost impressive. Almost. Prepare the demonstration, the Admiral commanded, his voice harder now. Target the gas giant. The large one with the many moons. Charge quantum destabilizers to full power. The crew jumped into action. If the humans wanted to see what happened to species that defied the Royal Fleet, they would get a clear demonstration. The planet cracker World Breaker moved toward the massive gas giant the humans called Jupiter. Its quantum destabilizers began to charge with deadly energy. Sir, destabilizers at full charge, reported the weapons officer. Fire! The space around Jupiter lit up with violent energy as the quantum destabilizers fired. The weapons were designed to find the natural stress points in a planet's structure and tear them apart. Gas giants were particularly easy targets. Their massive gravity wells made them unstable by nature. But something was wrong. The World Breaker had stopped moving. Its engines were running at full power, but the massive ship hung motionless in space like it was trapped in invisible chains. Engineering. Report, HFY snapped. Sir, all systems are normal. Engines at maximum output. But we are not moving. More alarms began to sound across the fleet. Other ships were reporting the same problem. They could fire their weapons, run their systems, and communicate normally. But they could not move. On the main screen, something near Earth's moon began to change. What sensors had identified as a simple mining facility was unfolding like a metal flower. Crystalline structures emerged from hidden bays. Energy readings spiked to impossible levels. Admiral HFY stared at the display with growing dread. In his long career of conquest, he had learned to recognize the signs of a superior technology. And for the first time in the history of the Royal Fleet, they were looking at something beyond their understanding. The humans, it seemed, had been busy indeed. The emergency lights bathed the bridge in red as Admiral HFY tried to understand what was happening to his fleet. Half of his ships reported the same impossible problem. They were stuck in space, unable to move forward or backward. Their engines worked perfectly, but it was like they were caught in invisible mud. Report from the World Breaker, sir, called the communications officer. They cannot approach the gas giant. Something is holding them in place. Lieutenant Vextar checked his instruments with shaking hands. Sir, I am reading massive gravitational distortions throughout the system, but the sources are artificial. Impossible, the Admiral growled. No species has that level of technology. We would have detected it during our approach. But even as he said it, HFY knew he was wrong. The evidence was right in front of him. Somehow the humans had built weapons that could manipulate gravity itself. They had trapped the most powerful fleet in the galaxy without firing a single shot. On the main viewing screen, the structure near Earth's moon continued to unfold. It was enormous, easily the size of a small moon itself. The metal surfaces were covered in patterns that hurt to look at. They seemed to bend light around themselves in ways that made no sense. Sir, Incoming transmission from Earth, the communications officer reported. Put it through. The screen changed to show a human face. It was a female with dark hair and kind eyes. She wore simple clothing and sat in what looked like an ordinary room. Nothing about her appearance suggested she commanded weapons that could stop the royal fleet. Admiral HFY, she said with the same calm politeness as before. I am Dr. Elena Vasquez, Director of Planetary Defense. I apologize for the inconvenience we have caused your fleet. What have you done to my ships? The Admiral demanded. We have activated our spatial manipulation fields, she replied as if discussing the weather. Your vessels are perfectly safe. We simply cannot allow them to approach our planets while armed with hostile intent. Spatial manipulation? Lieutenant Vextar whispered. That is theoretical technology. No species has ever managed to build working gravity weapons. Dr. Vasquez must have heard him through the open channel. She smiled slightly. You are correct, Lieutenant. Most species find such technology impossible to develop, but most species did not evolve on Earth. She touched something off-screen, and new information appeared on the Royal Fleet's sensors. Detailed scans of the human homeworld that had been impossible to detect before. The planet was not what it seemed. Your sensors are now receiving updated information about our world, Dr. Vasquez continued. We have been somewhat modest about our capabilities. The data flooding the Admiral's screens was staggering. Earth was not just inhabited, it was transformed. Massive installations reached deep into the planet's core. The atmosphere itself had been modified with particles that could be controlled from the surface. The oceans contained networks of devices that managed the planet's magnetic field. This is impossible, Admiral HFY said, but his voice lacked conviction. Admiral, may I ask where your species evolved? Dr. Vasquez asked politely. The fourth, world of the Zephyr system. Why? Gravity? Standard galactic normal, 0.87 universal units. Tectonic activity? Minimal. Our world was stable. Dr. Vasquez nodded as if that explained everything. I see. Admiral, your species developed on what we would call a garden world. Stable gravity, calm geology, predictable weather, an excellent environment for building civilizations. She paused, and something changed in her expression. The kindness was still there, but behind it was something else. Something that made the Admiral's skin crawl. Earth is not a garden world, Admiral. Earth is what your scientists would classify as a death world. The bridge crew looked at each other in confusion. Death worlds were planets so hostile that life could barely survive there. They were covered in toxic atmosphere, extreme weather, and crushing gravity. No intelligent species had ever evolved on a true death world. Our gravity is 3 times your standard, Dr. Vasquez continued. Our tectonic plates shift constantly, causing earthquakes that can flatten continents. Our magnetic field fluctuates wildly, creating radiation storms. Our weather includes hurricanes with winds that reach 300 kilometers per hour. Admiral HFY felt cold fear creeping up his spine. But you have a thriving civilization. Yes, we do. The human's smile was gentle, but her eyes were not. Admiral, do you know what happens to a species that evolves in such conditions? What kind of creatures survive when their own planet tries to kill them every day? The Admiral did not want to know the answer, but she continued anyway. We become very, very good at surviving impossible situations. We learn to use hostile forces as tools. We develop technologies that work with chaos instead of against it. And most importantly, we learn to think like our planet thinks. On the tactical display, more human installations became visible throughout the solar system. They were not random, mining bases or simple colonies. They were part of a vast network that spanned the entire system. Every asteroid, every moon, every planet had been touched by human engineering. Your quantum destabilizers are impressive weapons, Dr. Vasquez admitted. They find the natural weak points in planetary structure and exploit them. Very effective against stable worlds. But Admiral, Earth has no stable structure. Our planet has been breaking itself apart and rebuilding for billions of years. The implications hit the Admiral like a physical blow. You have learned to control your planet's instability. We have learned to partner with it, she corrected. Your weapons do not destroy our world, Admiral. They feed it. Every quantum pulse you fire makes our planet stronger. As if to demonstrate, Dr. Vasquez touched another control. On the viewing screen, Earth itself began to change. The blue-green surface shifted and flowed like liquid. Massive structures rose from the oceans. The atmosphere sparkled with controlled lightning. We spent our first century in space learning about galactic civilization, the human continued. We intercepted communications, studied your technologies, observed your conquests. We learned that every species in the galaxy follows the same basic development pattern. They master their environment, then spread to the stars. She leaned forward, and for the first time her voice carried emotion. It was sadness. But we also learned that galactic civilization has a blind spot. All of you evolved on worlds that taught you to build defenses against outside threats. You create shields to stop energy weapons. You build armor to stop projectiles. You develop tactics to fight enemies that think like you. The Admiral's hands trembled as he realized what she was about to say. But none of you ever learned to fight an enemy that thinks like a death world. The communication channel remained open, but Dr. Vasquez said nothing more. She simply sat in her ordinary room, waiting patiently, while the most powerful fleet in the galaxy slowly came to terms with a terrible new reality. They were not the predators here. They were the prey, and the trap had already closed around them. Admiral Kethvar stared at Dr. Vasquez through the communication screen, trying to process what he was seeing. The human sat calmly in her simple room while outside, her species had just demonstrated technology that made the royal fleet look like children playing with toys. Dr. Vasquez, he said carefully, what exactly do you want from us? Nothing, Admiral. We simply want you to understand your situation before you make any decisions that cannot be undone. Our situation? The Admiral's voice carried the authority of someone who had conquered 17 worlds. We are the royal fleet. We have never been defeated. No, she agreed. You have never faced an enemy that could defeat you. But Admiral, you have also never faced an enemy that evolved the way we did. She touched a control, and the main screen split to show multiple views. One showed Earth's surface, where massive installations were rising from the ground like metal mountains. Another showed the space around the planet, where the human ships had begun to move in patterns that made no tactical sense. Your species learned to hunt on a stable world, Dr. Vasquez continued. You developed weapons to fight other hunters. You built strategies to defeat enemies who thought like you. Every species you have conquered followed the same pattern. Lieutenant Vextar was studying his sensor readings with growing alarm. Sir, the human ships are not following any known tactical formation. They are spreading throughout the system in a seemingly random pattern. Not random, Dr. Vasquez corrected gently. Adaptive. Admiral, what is the most dangerous predator? On your homeworld? The question seemed strange, but Kethvar answered. The razor maw. It hunts in packs and can take down prey 10 times its size. And how does it hunt? It uses speed and coordination. The pack surrounds the target and attacks from all sides, Dr. Vasquez nodded. A direct assault by a superior force, very effective against prey that tries to fight back. But Admiral, what would happen if your razor maws tried to hunt something that did not fight the way they expected? Before he could answer, alarms began sounding throughout the fleet. Ships were reporting system failures across all vessels, not damage from enemy fire but simple malfunctions. Navigation systems going offline, weapon targeting computers developing. Errors, life support systems requiring constant adjustment. What is happening to my fleet? The Admiral demanded. You are experiencing death world conditions, Dr. Vasquez replied calmly. Earth's environment does not just challenge living things, Admiral. It challenges everything. Our technology had to evolve to work in conditions that would destroy most. Galactic standard equipment. She gestured to something off-screen, and new data appeared on the Royal Fleet sensors. The space around Earth was not empty. It was filled with particles so small they had not been detected before. Microscopic machines that were interfering with every system in the Zephyrian fleet. We call them adaptive nanites, the human explained. They are designed to study and modify any technology they encounter. Not to destroy it, but to make it work better in our environment. Unfortunately, what works better for us may not work better for you. Admiral Kethvar watched his tactical display as more ships reported problems. The quantum destabilizers were losing power. Engine efficiency was dropping. Even basic communication systems were becoming unreliable. You are sabotaging our fleet. No, Admiral. We are demonstrating the difference between stable world technology and death world technology. Your equipment was designed to work in predictable conditions. Our equipment was designed to adapt to anything. Lieutenant Vextar looked up from his console with wide eyes. Sir, the nanites are not damaging our systems. They are improving them. But the improvements are not compatible with our operating procedures. Show me. The lieutenant transferred his readings to the main screen. The nanites were indeed upgrading the ship's systems, but in ways that made no sense for Zephyrian technology. Weapons were being modified to work with gravity fields that did not exist on their ships. Life support was being adjusted for atmospheric conditions that would be toxic to their species. You see, Dr. Vasquez continued, your technology assumes a stable environment. Our technology assumes that everything will try to kill it. Your ships are built to fight other ships. Our ships are built to survive in a universe that is actively hostile. As if to prove her point, the human vessels in the distance began to change shape. What had looked like simple metal ships revealed themselves to be something far more complex. They flowed and shifted like living things, adapting their configuration to unknown purposes. Impossible, Admiral Kethvar whispered. Ships cannot change their basic structure. Ships cannot. But Admiral, who said we built ships? The truth hit him like a physical blow. The humans had not built spaceships in the traditional sense. They had created living things that could survive in the vacuum of space, creatures that had evolved from Earth's hostile environment and been shaped by human intelligence. We spent 50 years studying galactic warfare, Dr. Vasquez continued. We learned that every species builds the same basic types of vessels: fighters, cruisers, dreadnoughts, planet crackers, all designed to fight predictable enemies using predictable tactics. She stood up from her chair and walked to a window that showed the space outside. Earth hung in the distance, beautiful and deadly. But we did not build ships to fight other ships, Admiral. We built organisms to survive in an impossible universe. They do not follow your tactical rules because they are not bound by your technological limitations. On the tactical display, the Admiral watched as his mighty fleet was slowly rendered, helpless by an enemy that refused to fight like an enemy. The humans were not trying to destroy the royal fleet. They were simply making it impossible for the fleet to operate. What do you want? He asked again. We want you to understand that you have made a mistake, Dr. Vasquez replied. You came here expecting to find another stable world civilization that would follow predictable patterns. Instead, you found something that your experience cannot prepare you for. She returned to her seat and looked directly at the Admiral through the communication screen. 17 species have fallen to the royal fleet because they tried to fight you using galactic standard tactics. They built shields and weapons and hoped to match your superior firepower. They failed because they were fighting the wrong war. The alarms on the bridge had multiplied. More systems were failing, or rather, being modified beyond recognition. The great warships of the royal fleet were becoming something else. Something that might work in Earth's chaotic environment but would never again serve the Zephyrian Empire. We are not fighting you, Admiral, Dr. Vasquez said softly. We are doing what Death World children do best. We are surviving. And unfortunately for your fleet, surviving in our environment means that nothing else can remain unchanged. Admiral Kethvar realized with growing horror that his ships were being slowly digested by an enemy that did not even consider them a threat. They were being absorbed, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. Admiral Kethvar felt something he had not experienced in decades of conquest: helplessness. His fleet was trapped, his weapons were useless, and his enemy continued to speak in polite, measured tones as if she were discussing agricultural reports. Dr. Vasquez, he said, fighting to keep his voice steady, surely we can reach some arrangement. The Zephyrian Empire is willing to negotiate. The human's expression softened with what looked like genuine sympathy. Admiral, I appreciate the offer, but I am afraid you still do not understand what is happening here. She touched her control panel again, and the main screen filled with data about Earth's geological history. Charts showed volcanic eruptions that could destroy continents, ice ages that froze the planet solid, asteroid impacts that boiled the oceans. Throughout it all, life had not just survived, but had grown stronger. My species has faced extinction many times, Dr. Vasquez explained. Supervolcanoes, ice ages, plague, war, climate change. Each time we adapted. Each time we became something more than we were before. Lieutenant Vexatar was studying his instruments with increasing panic. Sir, the nanites have spread to 60% of our systems. They are not damaging anything, but they are changing everything. Show me the weapon systems, the Admiral commanded. The tactical display revealed the scope of the transformation. The quantum destabilizers were still functional, but they had been modified to work with Earth's gravitational fields. The ship's armor had been redesigned to absorb and redirect energy rather than simply resist it. Even the life support systems had been changed to process atmospheric conditions that would support human life. Your ships are becoming capable of operating in our environment, Dr. Vasquez observed, watching the same data. They are being adapted for survival in death world conditions. It is quite impressive, actually. Your original technology is very sophisticated. We do not want our ships adapted, Admiral Kethvar growled. We want them restored to their original specifications. I understand. But, Admiral, that is not how evolution works. Once a species adapts to a new environment, it cannot go back to the old one. Your ships have been exposed to death world conditions. They are changing to survive those conditions. The process cannot be reversed. The Admiral's hands clenched into fists. His species had conquered 17 worlds through superior firepower and tactical brilliance. Now they were being defeated by microscopic machines that improved their equipment in ways they did not want. This is biological warfare, he accused. No, Admiral, this is simply life. Dr. Vasquez stood and walked to another window, this one showing Earth's surface in detail. Cities sprawled across continents, but they were not built like any galactic civilization the Admiral had ever seen. They flowed with the landscape rather than imposing themselves upon it. They worked with their environment instead of against it. When my species first achieved spaceflight, she continued, we studied the galaxy and learned something interesting. Every intelligent species follows the same development pattern. They master their environment, then spread to other worlds that are similar to their home. She turned back to face the communication screen. But Earth taught us a different lesson. We learned that mastering an environment means becoming part of it. We did not conquer our planet, Admiral. We partnered with it. And when we reached for the stars, we brought that partnership with us. On the tactical display, more changes were becoming apparent. The human ships were not just moving through space, they were transforming it. The area around Earth was becoming something new, something that followed rules the Admiral did not understand. Your quantum destabilizers work by exploiting natural weaknesses in planetary structure, Dr. Vasquez said, returning to her seat. It is an elegant solution for stable worlds. But Earth has no stable structure, Admiral. Our planet has been in constant motion for billions of years. She activated another display that showed Earth's geological layers in cross-section. Instead of the solid, predictable structure that most planets possessed, Earth's interior was a maze of moving parts. Tectonic plates shifted constantly. Magma flows changed direction without warning. The planet's magnetic field flickered and danced like a living thing. We learned to read those patterns, the human continued. We learned to predict them, to work with them, eventually to guide them. Your weapons do not destroy our world, Admiral. They provide it with new energy to reshape itself. As if responding to her words, Earth's surface began to change. Mountain ranges flowed like water. Oceans shifted their boundaries. The atmosphere itself sparkled with controlled energy discharges. This is impossible, Lieutenant Vextar whispered. No species can control an entire planet. Most species try to control their environment by imposing order on it, Dr. Vasquez agreed. But Death World species learn to control their environment by understanding its chaos. We do not make our planet stable, Lieutenant. We make ourselves capable of thriving in instability. Admiral Kethvar realized with growing dread that he was not facing a military force in any traditional sense. The humans had not built weapons to fight the Royal Fleet. They had built an entire civilization that was incompatible with galactic standards. What happens now? He asked. That depends on you, Admiral. You have 3 choices. Dr. Vasquez held up one finger. First, you can try to fight us using conventional tactics. Your weapons will be absorbed by our defenses and used to make our planet stronger. Your ships will continue to be adapted until they can no longer serve your empire. Eventually, Your crews will be forced to abandon them. A second finger joined the first. Second, you can try to retreat. But your ships have been exposed to Death World conditions. They will continue to change whether you want them to or not. When you return to your empire, you will bring our adaptations with you. The nanites will spread to other ships, other worlds. Your civilization will begin to evolve whether you choose to or not. The third finger completed the set. Or third, you can accept that the galaxy has changed. The age of planet-cracking fleets is ending, Admiral. Earth's children are going to the stars, and we are bringing our world's lessons with us. The Admiral stared at the human face on his screen, trying to find some sign of deception or weakness. Instead, he saw only patient certainty. Dr. Vasquez was not threatening him. She was simply explaining the natural consequences of the situation his empire had created. You are saying we have no choice. You always have choices, Admiral, but some choices have consequences that cannot be avoided. Your empire chose to attack a death world. Now you must live with what that choice has created. On the tactical display, the Admiral could see more human installations coming online throughout the solar system. Not weapons platforms or defensive structures, but something far more dangerous. They were infrastructure. The humans were not preparing for war. They were preparing for expansion. How many of you are there? He asked quietly. On Earth? About 12 billion. Dr. Vasquez smiled, and for the first time it was not entirely kind. But Admiral, Earth's children are not limited to Earth anymore. We have been growing for 50 years, and Death World children are very, very good at surviving in hostile environments. The implication struck the Admiral like a physical blow. If humans could thrive on a world that would kill most galactic species, what would they become when they spread to easier worlds? They would not just survive, they would multiply. And eventually, they would inherit everything. 3 days had passed since the Royal Fleet entered the Sol system. 3 days of watching their mighty warships become something alien and unrecognizable. Admiral Kethvar stood on his bridge, no longer the commander of the galaxy's most feared weapon, but a witness to the end of an era. The changes to his ships were nearly complete. What had once been pure Zephyrian military technology now bore the mark of Earth's influence. The quantum destabilizers could still crack planets, but they had been modified to work with gravitational fields that existed nowhere in the known galaxy. The armor plating had become something that could absorb energy and redirect it in ways that followed no known physics. Most disturbing of all, the ship's computer systems had begun to think differently. They still followed orders, but they interpreted those orders through the lens of Death World logic. When commanded to attack, they first analyzed how to survive the counterattack. When ordered to retreat, they planned how to use the withdrawal to gain tactical advantage. "Sir," Lieutenant Vextar reported, his voice hollow with defeat. "Engineering says the modifications are irreversible. The nanites have integrated with our systems at the quantum level. Even if we could remove them, the ships would not function without them anymore." Admiral Kethvar nodded grimly. He had already reached the same conclusion. The Royal Fleet no longer existed. In its place was something new, something that could never again serve the Zephyrian Empire in the way it was designed to. "Dr. Vasquez has requested another communication," the communications officer announced. "Put her through." The human appeared on the main screen, still sitting in her simple room. But something had changed in her expression. The patient politeness was still there, but behind it was something harder. Something that spoke of decisions being made. "Admiral Kethvar," she said without preamble, "my government has asked me to inform you that our patience has limits." "What do you mean?" "For 3 days, you have remained in our system while your ships are adapted to Death World conditions. We have allowed this because we hoped you would come to understand your situation. But Earth's children have other concerns that require our attention." She touched her control panel and the main screen split to show multiple star systems. In each one, structures similar to the one near Earth's moon were under construction. Some were already active, their crystalline arrays reaching across space with invisible fingers of gravitational manipulation. "We have been expanding for 50 years, Admiral, quietly, carefully, learning about galactic civilization while preparing for the day when we would need to defend ourselves. That day has come." Admiral Kethvar felt a chill run down his spine. How many systems? Currently, we have a presence in 47 star systems. By the end of this year, it will be over 100. Dr. Vasquez's expression remained calm, but her voice carried the weight of inevitability. Earth's children do not expand like other species, Admiral. We do not conquer worlds. We adapt them. The implications were staggering. While the Zephyrian Empire had been destroying civilizations, the humans had been quietly spreading throughout the galaxy. Not as conquerors, but as something far more dangerous. They were changing the fundamental nature of space itself. Your empire has a choice to make, the human continued. You can accept that the galaxy is changing and find your place in the new order. Or you can try to maintain the old ways and discover what happens when stable world technology faces death. World determination. Lieutenant Vexatar was studying long-range sensors with growing alarm. Sir, I am detecting massive energy signatures throughout the galaxy. Hundreds of them. They match the profile of the installation near Earth's moon. Not installations, Lieutenant, Dr. Vasquez corrected. Seeds. Each one is capable of transforming an entire star system to support death world conditions. We do not terraform planets to suit us, Admiral. We transform space itself to match our nature. On the tactical display, Admiral Kethvar watched as the galaxy he had known for his entire life revealed itself to be an illusion. The humans had not been hiding from galactic civilization. They had been preparing to replace it. The 17 species you destroyed, Dr. Vasquez continued, her voice carrying a note of sadness. Each one tried to fight you using conventional military doctrine. They built bigger ships, stronger shields, more powerful weapons. They failed because they were trying to win a war that had already ended. She stood and walked to her window again, looking out at Earth's transformed surface. Cities flowed like living things across continents that reshaped themselves according to their inhabitants' needs. The sky sparked with controlled lightning that carried power and information across the globe. But Earth's children learned a different lesson from your conquests. We learned that the age of planet-cracking fleets is ending not because someone built better weapons, but because someone evolved beyond the need for them. Admiral Kethvar found his voice. What are you saying? I am saying that your empire's greatest achievement has become obsolete. Planet crackers work by exploiting the stability that most worlds depend upon. But Admiral, what happens when stability itself becomes the weakness? As if responding to her words, space around the Sol system began to change. The vacuum between planets filled with barely visible streams of energy. Gravity wells shifted and flowed like water. The fundamental laws of physics seemed to bend around Earth's influence. We do not need to destroy your ships, Admiral, because destruction is a stable world solution to a stable world problem. Instead, we offer your ships the chance to evolve, to become something more than they were. Lieutenant Vexatar was reading energy signatures that defied every law of physics he had been taught. Sir, the humans are not using technology in any way we understand. They are making space itself into a tool. Exactly, Dr. Vasquez said, apparently hearing his comment through the open channel. Death world children do not use tools, Lieutenant. We become tools. We adapt ourselves and everything around us until the distinction between organism and environment disappears. The Admiral watched his instruments as more impossible readings flooded in. The human ships in the distance were no longer recognizable as vessels. They had become something between living creatures and force of nature, moving through space like thought through a mind. Your quantum destabilizers were designed to crack planets, the human continued. But Admiral, we have learned. To crack the space between planets, your ships could fire every weapon they possess at Earth, and the energy would simply be absorbed and redirected to help our planet grow stronger. She returned to her seat and looked directly at the Admiral through the communication screen. The choice before you is simple. You can try to fight an enemy that has evolved beyond fighting. You can retreat and discover that your transformed ships will carry our influence back to your empire, or you can accept that the galaxy belongs to Earth's children now. Admiral Kethvar realized with crystalline clarity that he was not just facing the end of a military campaign. He was witnessing the end of his civilization's dominance over the galaxy. The humans had not defeated the royal fleet through superior firepower. They had made the very concept of a royal fleet irrelevant. What do you want from us?" he asked. "Nothing, Admiral. We want nothing from you because we do not need anything from you. Earth's children are patient. We will spread at our own pace, adapt worlds at our own speed, and reshape the galaxy according to our nature. Your empire can find its place in that future, or it can try to resist and discover what happens when stable world thinking encounters death world reality." The communication channel fell silent, but Admiral HFY could see activity increasing throughout the human system. More structures were emerging from hidden locations. The space around Earth was becoming something new, something that followed rules no galactic civilization had ever imagined. "Sir," Lieutenant Vextar said quietly, "what are your orders?" The Admiral looked around his bridge at crew members who had once commanded the most feared weapons in the galaxy. Now they were passengers on ships that no longer belonged to their empire, watching an enemy that had won without firing a shot. "Signal the fleet," he said finally. "All ships are to power down weapons and request safe passage to the edge of the system." "Sir, we are going home, Lieutenant, and we are going to tell the Empire that the galaxy has a new apex predator." As the transformed remains of the royal fleet began their long journey back to Zephyrian space, Admiral HFY took one last look at the blue-green world that had changed everything. Earth hung in space like a jewel, beautiful and deadly, home to creatures that had learned to thrive in impossible conditions. The planet crackers had met something that could not be cracked, and the galaxy would never be the same. Dr. Vasquez watched the alien fleet depart from her office window, then turned to her assistant. "Begin Phase 2 of the expansion protocol. It is time for Earth's children to visit our new neighbors." In the depths of space, invisible to any scanner, thousands of human vessels began their journey to the stars. They moved like seeds on a cosmic wind, carrying with them the patient determination of a species that had learned to make the impossible into the inevitable. The age of planet crackers was ending. The age of world builders had begun.